So today I'm doing a new thing called Rambling About Blank, and today's topic is Tears of the Kingdom. This is going to be like a much more longer, unscripted at times video. I have a basic outline of the points I want to talk about, but nothing really set in stone. YouTube really favors longer videos, and that's why I'm doing this. Because with the good and the bad, I can make a longer one, and I plan on doing that. But this is just much more easier to do. And there will be background footage, but most of it probably won't be relevant, and it may even loop at times. I don't own any of the footage and music, and the sources will be linked in the description as always. You can use this video in the background to like sleep with or whatever you want, man. I'm not the arbiter of what you do. With that, I hope you enjoy this. It may be a little rough at times, the audio may change, I might record in a different location, but I hope you do enjoy this video. Spoilers will be marked with the chapters, and I'll try to save that for the end, or if I accidentally do spoil it, I'll just bleep it out in post. So with all that said, let's start with the background stuff. Tears of the Kingdom is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which was a monumental title for the Switch. A launch title that shook the ground and everyone loved. Not just because it was the only game at launch for Switch. The only Nintendo IP, first party title, you know. It was because it was a good game. It was a new step for Zelda games, going completely open world. It sold really well too. I think it has to be at least one of the best, if not best, selling Switch games. But it did have some complaints, mainly story being basically non-existent, the dungeons with the divine beasts, there wasn't really a lot of them. People weren't really a fan of them either. Repeating bosses and enemy types, it could never be perfect, but it was a very good game. And then the sequel was announced, and it was if after Jesus came back, he just started giving out $5,000 to everyone. It was an insane but expected at the same time announcement. Breath of the Wild was adored and was making bank. Nintendo was not gonna let that slip. It would be only for the Switch, no Wii U to hold it back, although I don't think the Wii U held Breath of the Wild back that much. The trailers and teasers showed the sky and traversing the sky with new abilities. I definitely remember Ascend and I think Recall being shown. But Hyrule was already vast, and you're telling me there's basically a Hyrule in the sky now? It looked like it was harkening back to Skyward Sword, and I think they may have gotten ideas from that remaster. But we now know that wasn't really the case. The sky takes 16% of the map size. And it had this creepy atmosphere with the caves and this dark, eerie location where Zelda and Link were. And do I even need to mention that Ganon was coming back? Not as Calamity form or whatever, he's this corpse. It really reminds me of the old Zelda with the genuinely scary lore they have. But Tears of the Kingdom released on May 12th of this year, 2023. It may be this year when this is released, I don't know. This is one reason why I'm not doing a good and the bad on it. It's the newest thing I've covered so far. But it's also a huge game too. But I didn't get Tears of the Kingdom on launch, mainly because of that staggering $70 price tag. But I understand why. And I was kind of scared by the mechanics. I saw these pictures and videos of these Zonai devices and Ultrahand and whatnot. They look quite eccentric and complicated. I was like, why do I have to make that? I'm not a huge fan of crafting and designing things in games. Some examples, I know that I mentioned the gummy ships in Kingdom Hearts in one of my videos, but also Minecraft, just the game, custom characters. I usually go with the default stuff, or if there's no default, I'll try to recreate the character on the box art or the promotional material. So I was I don't really like that, but I eventually caved in. I had to. So let's just start from the beginning of the game. So the start of the game is basically Link and Zelda in this cave, and they're exploring it, and they're looking at murals underground. It's basically like the trailer, the first trailer that the game showed off for Tears of the Kingdom. But like Link is like fully decked out. He's got stamina. He's got full stamina, full hearts, which you can't get in the game. You can't get like how many hearts he has, and the stamina either. He's got the Master Sword. He doesn't have his paraglider for some reason. But one thing I'm gonna look back on, I feel like, is the replayability of Tears of the Kingdom, because its opening is quite long, and this is one of the main contributing factors to that, because Zelda just talks for so long in this opening, and I'd rather them just get to the Ganon part. But when they do get to the Ganon part, it's pretty good. I think that it's a solid intro. There's basically an earthquake that happens, and then Zelda and Link just fall, presumably to their deaths, but they don't die because the game continues. Link wakes up akin to Breath of the Wild in the Shrine of the Awakening. It's basically the Shrine of Awakening. And you do your tutorial stuff, the climbing, it introduces diving into the water, which is pretty cool. Your clothes and whatnot. I think you get the Pure Pad. I'm not sure though. You might get that from a Zonai, I think. I'm not sure. But then you get out, and then it does the whole title screen. I don't think this is as good as Breath of the Wild though, because going on the Great Plateau, and then you see Hyrule. It's really, I don't have the words to describe it. It's just a feeling, you know. It's an experience, and you feel so small to this vast, huge world. And Tears of the Kingdom tries to capture that moment again, but it's alright. Falling to the sky is it's alright. Maybe it'll grow on me, but I don't find it as good. But the Great Sky Island is the best of what the sky has to offer. It's big, and it's basically the Great Plateau too, and it has this unique color to it and atmosphere. There's a lot of yellows. There's the leaves are kind of this fallish color, this autumn color, and it reminds me of fall time. And there's these ponds and lakes that you can just dive to. There's the snowy area, mountains and stuff. The Temple of Time, which is weird. I don't know why there's a Temple of Time in the Great Sky Island. It's not really expanded on. A lot of things in this game are just kind of not expanded on, the shrines disappearing, the Sheikah shrines and the Divine Beasts. Where are they? And we get to see this kind of ancient civilization of the Zonai, and they're super weird, and I kind of like them. I think they're interesting addition to the Zelda canon lore, whatever, of these robot things. They have gacha machines and stuff. It's weird. The Great Sky Island, however, I think does a better job at what the Great Plateau did. The Great Plateau is nostalgic to me, but the Great Sky Island, I think, looks better. It looks interesting. It stands out compared to the rest of the map. And it's I think Rauru is cool, but I mean, it's literally like the Great Plateau too. Like Rauru shows up, and he's basically the king of Hyrule, the first king of Hyrule. But in Breath of the Wild, you met King Rome, and they're both like dead. But Rauru doesn't give you the paraglider, so he's not cool. I don't like Rauru. He gives you his arm though. That's cool. His left arm, I think. And you do the 4 shrines like you do in the Great Plateau, you know, to introduce the new runes that are in the game. Those being Ultrahand, Ascend, Fuse, and Recall. So let's start with Ultrahand. Probably the best, most useful rune in the game. Ultrahand is like Magnesis, but better and improved. You no longer have to adhere to the rules of it being only metal objects. You can do it with just about anything you can imagine or see or whatever. Now, this doesn't mean everything. You can't like pick up buildings and whatnot. You can pick up rocks around the world. There's a bunch of like wooden planks and wheels to use to make like wagons, and basically you use Ultrahand to fuse and like attach the objects together with this like glue thing after the attaching has been done. And there's like many videos of people making all kinds of contraptions with it. There's like one where they're like roasting Koroks underneath or over fire and like cooking them. You can attach the Koroks together, these certain Koroks, because that is a part of their puzzle, is that you pick them up and bring them to their friends, and that usually involves like putting them in a minecart to go to the other side, or like, I don't know, you can fly them somewhere. That's probably the more efficient route. Just about with like anything in this game is probably making a hover bike, which you can do with Ultrahand. And it's why Ultrahand is probably the best rune in the game. Because hover bikes are super easy to make. You just get 2 fans and then a steering stick, and then you can cheese the entire game, basically. You can fly anywhere as long as you have enough battery and Zonai charge. But Ultrahand really opens up this game to be creative. You can be very creative with this game, but you don't have to be as creative with Ultrahand. You don't have to make these super complex contraptions. You can make a basic machine, and it'll work, and it'll help you solve the puzzles that are needed with Ultrahand, which I like, you know, because I don't like making super complex, unnecessary machines and contraptions. It's very simple to understand and learn Ultrahand. I remember the first shrine, I don't know why, but like I was having trouble like with the attaching. I guess I like skimmed over or something. And the last puzzle where you have to make the hook thing on the plank, that was and then I figured it out, and it was super simple. It's a super simple puzzle. But once you like learn how to use it, it's super fun. And but I kind of hope it doesn't they don't like use this in the future. I want them to use other ideas, you know. I want Ultrahand to be more of this game's kind of thing. The next rune is Fuse, which is basically Ultrahand, but worse. You know how you can like attach things to with Ultrahand, you can attach like wooden planks together. That's kind of the idea of Fuse, but you can't like move it around or anything. And it's more to increase the durability and the effectiveness, the damage on your weapons. You can also use it for different effects on arrows, with your bow and arrows, with shields, and also with swords and rods. You can put sapphire, any of the minerals. You can put like opal and topaz and ruby. You know, you can use ruby to make a fire rod and it burns everybody. I think it's sapphire to make a ice rod, and then that's super overpowered and you can freeze everybody. Topaz is very good. It's like an electric one where you can stun enemies. It's really good for like early game stuff and late game stuff. And it's kind of essential really for to do a lot of damage if you're wanting to do a lot of damage to enemies, because bosses probably, like, if you're using like, I don't know, like a broadsword or whatever, it's like 7 or something, 7 damage. It's gonna do like nothing to the bosses. It's gonna do chip damage, you know. Whereas if you fuse like a black bokoblin horn or like a stone talus heart, it's gonna add like 20 like damage to your claymore, or no, broadsword, I said in my example. And I think it's a cool idea. It's not really my favorite rune, but I think it's alright. It's a fun idea. I feel like it could have just been Ultrahand, another effect of Ultrahand, but whatever. But I really like the arrows. I think the arrows have nice, like the Keith's eyeball basically is aimbot. It'll always like go for like the weak spot, the like headshot of an enemy. It'll lock on, and I find that super fun. You can use like choo-choo jellies and splash fruit to make water arrows, and they're like the substitute for the arrow types from previous games. So you use bomb flowers for bomb arrows, and fire choo-choo jellies for fire arrows and whatnot, fire fruit. It's cool. But the UI for attaching arrows is kind of annoying, because you have to scroll through your list of items to find the particular item that you want to use, which when you're like late into the game, you got a bunch of items, and it's really annoying too. It's a hassle, really, and you might as well just use regular arrows instead of wasting your time, you know, to do some damage. It also makes your like weapons really, also your shields really just look goofy at times. You can attach like really weird combinations, like a mushroom, and you can make it like a bouncy shield or like a bouncy sword or whatever. And you can like make really long weapons that clip into the ground. I don't know if I like this or if I really don't, but there is one thing that I'll talk about later on that I think is really cool and definitely makes Fuse. I think Fuse and it are like the peanut butter and jelly. Ascend is definitely exists. I forget that this one exists, and I rarely use it. And when I notice I use it, there's probably other methods that are just a lot more fun and interesting to do than just using Ascend. The only real use I see out of Ascend is the Rito village. Just being able to scale up the mountain really fast, faster than Breath of the Wild, it's a lot more efficient. I saw somewhere that Ascend was kind of like this debug feature that the developers use, and it was just super useful to them that they just added it to the game. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds true. It makes a lot of the the things that you can ascend to like pretty obvious. Like they have a different texture and like different look to them, and it's like, oh yeah, I can ascend to that. But like I mostly use ascend in like the shrines, not really in the like overworld, because it's just like I something about it. I just always forget about it. And these runes are more like not combat based, you know, so they're more to help you with the overworld. But I mean, it's a better Cryonis. I definitely like it better than Cryonis, but I still don't use those two as much as the other runes in the game. It's a cool idea, and I'm glad they tried it, you know. I also like the where you can pop out if you don't want to ascend. You can like look, you can ascend and then you can like look out, and you're not fully like up there, out of like you haven't ascended yet. You're like your body's like halfway through the surface, and you can like check your surroundings, make sure it's safe, and then if it's not safe, you can go down. I think that's a very useful feature. Recall is one that I learned of its like usefulness kind of a little bit too late into the game. At first I thought it was just like a worse stasis, because I liked freezing like the enemies and being able to just wail on them, you know. And you can't really do that with Recall. It's more about its overworld exploration effectiveness rather than combat prowess. But Recall and Ultrahand go hand in hand, because in shrines they can really cheat. You can cheese like probably like, I don't know, like 50% of the shrines with just Recall and Ultrahand. Like Recall works by rewinding what the object did, the object's action, and kind of going back in time to its previous point. So you can put the object in the air and then drop it down to the floor and get on it and then recall it, and then it'll go back up. And you can definitely see where this, you can like put it somewhere where there's like a gap or something, and you can use recall and go over that gap with an object that you're standing on. But what I like about this is that, you know, you can do that if you want, but it's you have to go out of your way to do that. There's like ways to get into the sky with recall. There's these rocks that fall down, and you just recall them, and then they shoot you way up into the sky, and you can glide off of them. I found that really fun, and it kind of made Hyrule more. I think it expanded on Hyrule and made the overworld, like it told a story in the overworld kind of. Recall is also like Zelda's, I think, canon power or whatever. I don't know. The story is just something else. So after you do all the shrines, you have to go to the Temple of Time, and there's this big door, and you go to the goddess statue and get your heart container. So now you have 4 hearts, and you open this big door with your 4 hearts, and like a Master Sword-esque sequence cutscene, and it like takes like almost all of your hearts, and then you open it. It's a really cool cutscene. And you walk down this long kind of hallway in the air, and then you jump off to Hyrule. And I think this is the like great plateau moment, because it's such a long height, and it feels impactful. Once you're in Hyrule, I'm pretty sure you're like basically free to do whatever you want. But you might have to do the lookout landing. But you're probably, your first like instinct is probably gonna do like the towers and stuff. And the towers here are quite different. They're called Skyview towers, and really different from scaling up the towers and doing like an Assassin's Creed Ubisoft type deal, where it scans the map and then you have all the stuff that you need to know. It colors in the map, but not as bad as Ubisoft or whatever, where all the activities and stuff are shown that pollute the map. Instead, there's a lot more just puzzles, you know. The Breath of the Wild ones were puzzles involving trying to get up to the towers. And there are some that involve, you know, getting up to like the top of the tower or whatever. But a lot of them are like on the ground, and you have to figure out a way to get like inside, or like you have to fix the mechanism that makes the towers work, or the door might be stuck by sticks. The doors may be covered by spiky thorns that you have to fire. You have to use fire arrows on. A lot of cool stuff, and you have to build like a roof over top. I really like the puzzles. And there's also one with the recall rune, where you use the rocks that fall down, and you have to use it to get on top of the tower, which is really cool. But I think there is some like I do kind of miss being able to climb up the towers and stuff. And I think Breath of the Wild's towers are better in their puzzles. But once you get on top of the tower, or well, activate the tower. Once you activate the tower, that's where my opinion changes, because basically it like launches up Link into the sky, and he scans the surrounding area, and he puts it into his Puripad, and like you do this, and like a cutscene plays, and you can glide from like anywhere. You can glide once you're up there. And this is like your main like transportation, at least for me. It was my main way of getting around, was just activating the towers and then launching up into the sky. And you can go to like Sky Islands, you can find shrines, you can find other towers. It's really nifty. But what's not nifty is the cutscenes that play, because they are super long. They're like 20 seconds long, but it adds up every time you have to activate a tower. They play like there's no like you can skip the like the tentacle part where the robot arms grab Link and whatever. You can't skip the part where he's launched up in the air and he's scanning the area. And it doesn't change or anything, and it's just the same cutscene. It's just like, it's just super tedious, and just, I wish there was a skippable, like a skip cutscene button. And there was like no patches or like updates from what I've seen that patched that in. And it seems like such an easy fix. And then after the towers, you know, you're gonna go for the shrines, to upgrade your hearts and your stamina. And the shrines are quite different. I think they're Zonai powered or whatever. They're not Sheikah. They're definitely not Sheikah. And they look quite different. I actually like the look of them. I like the Sheikah one, the Sheikah like blue, like fancy technology ones, but the green like aura whatever like flowing out of it, I think that looks cooler, and it's got like this like barrier, like a belt or something around it, surrounding it. I think the shrines here are a lot more fun because Breath of the Wild, they're more scripted in Breath of the Wild. You have to follow what the developers intended. It's not a bad thing, and I think the shrines were cool. But the shrines here are definitely a step up because you can solve them any way you want to, as long as it works, you know, as long as it actually makes sense. Which I think helps if you're not really into puzzle games or anything. I think this could really help people get into puzzle games and whatnot, because you don't have to do it the way the developers intended. The solution that you may have came up with, probably the developers didn't even think of. I will say these are a lot more cheesable because you can use Ultrahand and you can use Recall to basically like brute force your way into the shrine. There's like, I think either, I looked it up, there was like either 140 or like 160 shrines, which is like 20 or like 40 more than in Breath of the Wild. But I think a lot of those in the Sky Islands and stuff are blessing shrines, Rauru blessing shrines, which have no puzzle. Well, they have like a puzzle, but that's before the shrine, and like it's usually getting to the shrine is the puzzle. The blessing is just like, oh, here's a reward. Because blessing shrines have no puzzles, they're just a chest and then you get the blessing. But I do remember one shrine that I hated because it's actual like bad game design, I think. So like there's lasers in the game that the game actively like tells you not to like touch because they usually lead to death. Or well, like falling to your death and then like losing a heart. I can't remember the name of the shrine, but it's one with a bunch of lasers. So you would think like, oh, I don't want to touch them. And there's like this ball in the middle that you're supposed to bring to like the pedestal thing that you put it in. But there's a door locked without a small key, and you have to find the small key. To get the small key, you have to touch the lasers that activate a trap door, something that the game has been telling you like not to touch. And then there's more lasers that you then have to don't touch. It's to get the small key. It's stupid. I was like running around for like 10 to 20 minutes. And like I had to look it up. Because like I didn't get what I was supposed to do. It doesn't give you like an actual like hint or like advice on like what to do. And it's a stupid shrine. Like everything else about it is like, oh, it's pretty good. But I just wish like they gave you like, you know, there's like text that appears before the shrine. I wish they would be like lasers. Are they friendly or are they not? You know? Like I think that's a little bit like too in your face. Like, oh, maybe I should touch the lasers. I feel like they could have came up with something. But like, God, that shrine sucks. Alright, so now on to the Geoglyphs, which are like the memories, but you have to do a little bit more exploring, I think, than the memories. The Geoglyphs basically involve you looking at a geoglyph, which is, it depicts it's usually on a hill, and it has art depicting an event that is relevant to a cutscene that will play after you find the tear in the art, kind of like Tears of the Kingdom. It's where the tears come in the name, and it's a side quest that is started by Impa. It's cool to see Impa, and I think the only good part is the Geoglyphs look cool. And I wish they weren't a part of this side quest, and I wish they were like in another game, because they genuinely look cool, and I like trying to find the tears. I don't really like the cutscenes, but it's cool to see Impa and like getting in like a hot air balloon to check out where the tear is. And that's like the best part, was seeing Impa. But the cutscenes are just really boring. To me, it felt like I was watching a Marvel movie, but like not the old ones, not like a Iron Man, that's actually kind of good. It's like watching one of the new ones where they just throw out powers, and just like a CGI powers they throw out, and that's all it feels like. It just feels like Zelda using her like magical light abilities and her recall ability or something. I didn't even finish this side quest because I had 9 or 8 out of the 13, I think, of the Geoglyphs. I was just too bored to finish it. I was like, I'm gonna finish this before I go to Ganon and whatnot in the final boss. Didn't do that. It just sucks because I really like the design of these, and some of these are really cool. There's I think a dagger, because that plays into something. I'm not even really gonna talk about the story. There's not much spoiling, because it's just I couldn't even tell you, and I don't really care about the story. And I liked some of the memories from Breath of the Wild, So then I headed on over to Rito Village and to do the Wind Temple. But Rito Village was covered in snow. It's actually one thing I wish they just kept and, didn't really change about it, because I actually like it being covered in snow. I thought it was a cool, this is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and then it changes back. I get it, it's probably not good for these birds to be covered in snow, but I like the aesthetic. And so you get to see, oh god, I think his name is Teba. Teba or Tebra. I think that's his name. He's the, little white bird. He's a big bird, and he's, the descendant of, Rivali. And he's, the chief now of the Rito village. And he's got a wife. I think he might have had the wife in Breath of the Wild. But they have a son called Tulin. And Tulin is cool. Tulin is cute and cool. It is a great addition. I love Tulin. And I think, Tulin is feeling very rebellious and, flies away or something. And you gotta go catch up to him, and then I think one of these flying creatures or whatever steals his bow, and you have to knock it down or something and fight with him. And then you get to use Tulin in his power. We'll talk about his power. We'll talk about the sage's powers later. Tulin basically allows a gust of wind to appear behind you and wherever you point it. And you can use it to gain more height when gliding. You can blow things away, although that's probably not what you want to do with it. It's quite annoying. But Tulin is a great power to have. Probably one of the better sage abilities. And then you have to kind of scale up to the Wind Temple. I feel like getting to the Wind Temple is more of the dungeon than the Wind Temple. It's probably the longest one. It's a cool sequence and I love it. I think it's probably better. Like, it's better than the Wind Temple, I think. You like jump on these like ships, the like ship sails to like get up higher to gain like height, and then you like use Tulin to gain even more distance to get to the ships. And of course there's enemies around, and you have to do some climbing, and it feels like an adventure getting up to the Wind Temple. You're like really up in the clouds. There's this sequence where there's like a ton of ships circling around the like Wind Temple. It's like obscured by clouds, and you have to jump on like the ships, and you have to keep on jumping on them. There's like nothing but ships, and you have to get into like the eye of the storm. That's so cool. And then the Wind Temple is alright. It's alright, I guess. I think the temples here are better than the Divine Beast, but I think there was something cool about moving the Divine Beast, but I think just regular temples is alright. Basically, you do like 5 or 4 mini shrine puzzles. You do their like little puzzles, and then it activates a thing to get to the boss of the dungeon. And the Wind Temple involves using Tulin to blow these like fan generator things to open up this floor panel thing that's in the middle to get to the boss. There's some neat like ice puzzles, which is cool. I love how they combine like ice and the wind in the Wind Temple. It's more of an ice dungeon, really, because you're using like the icicles. You can break them, and then you can attach them to a lever to because the lever is stuck, and you have to use the icicle to attach. You have to use Ultrahand to attach the icicle to the lever, and then pull it so you can activate a door. And there's like cannons on the like Wind Temple. It's like a huge ship, and they're trying to shoot you down when you get on the sides of the ship. And it's a great start. It's a great dungeon. The boss of the temple is Kogera, and this boss is a joke. If you don't use the intended way, which I think the intended way is to use your bow and arrows, I assume, because Tulin uses bow and arrows, but you can just dive into his weak spot and then do massive damage, like chunks of his health bar, or I guess chunks of its health bar. I don't know Kogera's gender. And Kogera looks really cool. All the bosses in this game really look different, and you can differentiate them, and they just have an appealing design, you know. Compare this to the blights in Breath of the Wild, and like, can you tell me the designs of the blights? Like, if you took off like the colors of them, could you differentiate and tell me which blight was which? Can you tell me if the lightning blight was the water blight if I took off like the yellow and the blue? But like, you can tell apart Kogera from the water dungeon, from the lightning dungeon. You know, you can tell them apart. Kogera is like this icy snake-like thing. I think it's kind of like a Molduga type of thing. There might have been a Kogera in a previous one. I don't know. I have a feeling it would have to be like one of the older titles. But this might be a new thing they cooked up. I know the water dungeon seems like a new thing they cooked up. After you finish the Wind Temple, there's this cutscene that plays, and it's, again, the cutscenes in this game are super boring. And the dungeon cutscenes are literally just copy and paste. Like, the Wind Temple has the Rito in there, and then the Zora one has the Zora people in there. You just copy and paste, like, and you copy the cutscene, and you paste in the character that is relevant to the dungeon. And they all mention like the imprisoning war. I'm pretty sure the dialogue is also just copy and pasted, which is really lazy. Like, they all mention the imprisoning war, the imprisoning war, the imprisoning war, the imprisoning war. But what's really cool is that you get the special ring power that it kind of reminds me of like the Monado abilities, and how they change. I think it's like the kanji on, and Link gets the kanji on like a ring of sorts. It's the vow of the sage on his Raru hand, and that's cool. And what's not cool is that this vow basically makes like an illusionary double of the sage. I'd rather just like have the sage with me, but like I get it. So, speaking of sages, and slight spoilers for the number of sages in this game, 3, 2, 1. There are 5 sages. I won't cover the 5th sage just yet. It'll be with the 5th temple. And let's just talk about their overworld usage and how unpractical they can be at times. So you know, we start with Tulin. He's a very good one, and that's kind of how I thought that the sages were gonna be like in this game. Is they were going to be like related to the descendants from Breath of the Wild, you know, like Sidon, Yunobo, Riju, and Teba, because Tulin is Teba's son. And so when I got to the Zora place, I saw that Sidon's wife, I thought she had a unique green design and she was quite different from the Zoras. I'm like, oh, okay, so she's gonna be the next sage. And I was hoping that, I was crossing my fingers, and no, you just do like a little thing with her and then you play with Sidon. It's disappointing. I would have really liked to use her, you know? And I feel like they kind of wasted her design. I thought they were like, oh, maybe I was still kind of hoping for that with the like Gorons and the Gerudo. But I kind of wish they went that route. Instead, we just have Tulin, and he's about the only cool design. I mean, Sidon's cool, Yunobo's cool. Riju, I'm fine with, because I don't know, they would probably have to design a new Gerudo person, like Sidon's wife. But what the sages are kind of stupid, because I don't think they were really designed that well, because so they appear around you, and to activate their power, you have to press the A button. You have to find which one you want to use, and they just run around, and they don't want to be around you. It's like, you have to play chase with them to activate their powers. And it's not like Breath of the Wild, where it's just a passive ability. Mipha's Grace activates when you die. I think you do like a charge attack for Arbrosa. I don't know how. I don't remember how Yunobo's work. I don't remember how the Goron one, I can't remember his name, how his worked, but it was like something with shields, maybe, I don't know. It was like a barrier. And Rivali's Gale was like you held down something and that it worked, and it was super useful. These ones are kind of lame, and they're kind of like really iffy on their like practicality. Tulin's is great for exploring, but actually terrible, and you don't want to activate it in combat, because if an enemy drops its weapons or like its parts, you can blow them away if you're like standing on a cliff, and they could just go down and you've lost them, basically, or you have to go fetch them, which is annoying. Then you have Sidons, which is it's kind of like the Gorons from Breath of the Wild, but it's like a water shield that protects you. Sidons is not that useful. It can make water. It's really just useful in his temple. I don't really find myself using it that much, but it's good, and it's good in like boss fights. I do think. Like, I think it can cool lava, maybe. It can harden lava. But Sidon's AI is really stupid, as he just wants to run away from you, and it would be better if he was like always kind of around you, kind of like, you know, a like guardian, a protector, you know, and it like protects you from attacks. You would think like he would be around you, but no. It's mainly Tulin who is behind you. Tulin's the GOAT because he'll always stay behind you. He gets headshots on people, but his power is like the worst one that I don't want to have, and he's always behind me, you know? Unobos is pretty good because he stays kind of around you, and it's like another attack. It's a fire attack, which it can be useful. It's not like huge damage, but it can do some chip damage, and it's mainly useful if you want like a fire attack on something. But its overall usage is also pretty good because you can break down rocks without using weapon durability up. You can use it with the grass to kind of make a homemade worse Rivali's Gale, which is cool, and couple that with Tulin's power, and you've got a worse Rivali's Gale, pretty short Rivali's Gale, and not like, you know, it was pretty good. Riju's pretty good also, but she's like Sidon, she runs away from you. I don't really see that much usage in the overworld with Riju's power, and I only really used it in the temple, and I don't really see like she runs away too much for it to be useful in combat too. I'm pretty sure others have already said this, but I feel like they could have mapped the buttons to the sages a lot better. I'm no like game designer, but like there's like so many ways that they could easily fix this, and they could probably easily fix this in a patch, but they probably aren't going to, which is sad. I mean, there's a lot of like button mapping issues I find with this game, but it's not like I complain about this stuff, but like it's not like that bad because the sage powers aren't really like the main thing I'm using in combat. They're just like little additions, little buffs to Link. And you can also, I forgot to mention this, you can turn them off. So if you find them annoying, you can just turn them off for whatever reason. But I kind of like it because I like it feels like you're not alone, you know? It feels like you have a bunch of like friends around you. It's just fun, even though they aren't like the real people. They're just fakes. Alright, so after the Wind Temple, I headed on over to the Zora Domain. And the trek over to the Zora Domain, I remember it kind of being a little bit difficult. Keep in mind, I didn't really have any of my armor upgraded. I didn't really have any good weapons. I wasn't really using Fuse that much. But once I got to the Zora Domain, the Zora Domain is covered in goop-like substance, like a goopy, gooey substance. It's really weird, but I kind of like it. And the Zora Domain is kind of like really unchanged, really. There's like maybe some goop on the statue or whatever, and you have to go clean it off. I remember being an absolute idiot with the Zora Domain, because I don't think I got the Zora armor, or I might have got it, and there was like waterfalls and stuff, but I like climbed over the mountains, and there's this one part where I think definitely need to use like the Zora armor, and I just didn't. But I eventually like realized that there's a lot of like, you know, this beforehand stuff temple for both the Wind Temple and the Zora Temple. the water temple, wherever. You have to go to like Sidon's dad or whatever, the like king of the Zoras, and you have to get like this scale, and you have to shoot the scale into the, like what I thought was like the Assassin's Creed logo. It's cool. You have to like explore a lot of like sky islands for the water temple and like the Zora domain, which I find really cool. And then there's this like mini boss fight with like a sludge like. And this was kind of like a difficult boss fight for me, and you get to use Sidon's powers, and you can imagine my disappointment when I realized that I couldn't use Sidon's wife. But basically you use Sidon's like water powers to clean the sludge and hit the like and expose its weakness, and after you do that, I think Sidon's like doing this like healing power or whatever. He's got like his hands in this like water, and he's like, I don't remember what he was doing with it. But after that, you go into this like whirlpool and like underground, and you do this like kind of mini puzzle thing. But then like I think you just go into the air using like these waterfalls that are like in midair. They're like flowing through midair. It's really neat. And you get to the water temple, and the water temple is probably one of my favorites. Just like one of my favorite Zelda dungeons, probably. It's super like, it looks cool, and I think it's innovative. There's a lot of like, the whole area is zero gravity, which is like really weird and like just a neat touch to put in. And it looks pretty. It reminds me of Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is one of my favorite games. It reminds me of like the World 1 of like Super Mario Galaxy 2, all of those like levels. And also a little bit of like the Cosmic Cove Galaxy, where there's like, you're swimming through like water like in space. It's super neat. I remember like there's a lot of puzzles with using these like water bubbles, and you have to like swim in them, and then you have to use recall on them. There's one where you have to use like, you have to put in the middle of like this electric you have to put the water bubble in like this, in the middle of this electric circuit to charge something to open a door to get, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, but like it's spewing out sludge or whatever, and you have to go fix that with Sidon's power. It's kind of like the generators and the wind temple to make them spew out water again. I think there was one that a lot of people had trouble with, and it's this one where you can use the platforms to, it's a really fast spinning thing, and there's a like button, there's like this there's this button in the middle of it that you have to shoot. You have to use the slow time arrow shot thing to slow down time and be able to actually like see where the button is and hit it. But what I find funny is that you can like throw like an item and just be super lucky, be like an NBA star, and just guess where the button is, and you can still hit it. It's probably way more time consuming and not as efficient, but it's cool. It looks cool, but I think the arrow looks cooler. So after you fix all the stuff in the water temple, you get to fight a boss, and this is one of my favorite bosses from this game, the Muktarok. It looks cool. I think it's pretty new, and it's like this sludge like monster, but deep down it's like this tiny little goblin creature thing, and it's a really just fun boss. And really challenging too. I didn't really have a lot of armor upgraded. I had to use attack up and I think like defense up to, I was doing chip damage to it really. And it could like two-shot me. I had like 8 or so hearts. But one thing that you can do like a lot of things to make this boss easier. Of course, upgrading your armor and weapons is like a necessity if you really want to do some damage to any of the bosses. But I found what was challenging was that the entire area was covered in sludge that you needed to clean off. And Sidon's does clean it off, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't do a lot. And you also need it for cleaning off the balls to expose like the smaller form that you actually do damage to. But you can, there are ways to alleviate that. You can use an opal rod, I think, which is like a water rod, and it cleans up like everything. Like I would have 2 of those, and it would make cleaning up the area to traverse around and be able to dodge the attacks a lot more spread out, like I can just walk around and run. You can use choo-choo jellies, you can get some splash fruit, and mainly just upgrading your weapons is like the main thing. And so I was able to beat him. And of course the cutscene plays, the copy and pasted cutscene plays, and you get Sidon's Vow. After the Water Temple, I did the Great Fairy quest, or at least I started it. You need to like talk to this pelican, and it opens like a bunch of quests over the map. The Great Fairy quest is quite different from its inclusion in Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, you could easily upgrade your armor as long as you had the rupees. You would just need to find where the Great Fairy pod flower thing was and open it, and they would ask for payment. It was usually like 1,000, and then I think 3,000, and like 5,000 maybe, and then like 10,000. So, and it was a lot easier to make rubies in Breath of the Wild, I feel. And a lot of things are kind of expensive in this game, especially armor. With here, it's a trade-off. You have to do kind of a annoying side quest at times in exchange for not paying as much rubies. You still have to pay rubies to upgrade your armor, but that's like 20 or so for each armor piece, and of course the materials to upgrade them. So what you have to do is you have to serenade the Great Fairies with a song, and luckily there's a band playing around the stables that are near the Great Fairy pods. So with this quest, you have to get the band members to the Great Fairy, and usually it's like kind of dangerous terrain, and it's really hard for the band members to get there. So you have to make like a wagon, and you have to get a towing harness with your horse, and you have to take them on the wagon, controlling the wagon, to the Great Fairy pod, where they can sing and dance and whatnot, and play to serenade the Great Fairy to come out, and then you can upgrade your armor. And the first quest is a little bit like, you have to get the towing harness, and that requires going to stables and getting pony points and whatnot, and you have to start the quest. It's not that bad, and it's a quick trip to the Great Fairy. There's nothing really dangerous on that one, and you can get those are pretty good upgrades just having one Great Fairy. The tedious part comes from the other Great Fairies, because some of the members of the band leave, and then you have to go track them down and get them back into the band. That's where the tedium comes from. Finding the members, and then you have to do a side quest with the member to get them back. I remember the most annoying one was the kid who I think he plays the flute or whatever, or a clarinet or whatever, and you have to get fireflies and whatnot. But this whole quest kind of reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, just in the atmosphere of it. And the music that they play when they get to the Great Fairies is just really nostalgic, and it kind of tears me up a little bit. It gets me a little teary-eyed. I also like Viola's design. I think it's really good. Oh, there's also one where you have to make a wagon with the horse and it's like over water. That one was pretty fun. You have to like get fans on the wagon, and oh my, it was really fun because like the bridge is broken and you have to traverse the water. So after the water temple and upgrading my armor at the Great Fairies, I went to the fire temple. And the fire temple is different because it's not in the sky, it's underground. And the underground is quite dark. But before that, you have to go to the Death Mountain and the Goron village. And you'll notice that the Gorons have like their eyes are glowy and whatnot, and they're being controlled by this they're being controlled by the rocks that they're eating or whatever. And you have to fight Yunobo, who's being controlled. I think he has like a mask or whatever, and it's controlling him. And it's a really quick and fun boss fight. And then you get Yunobo on your team. Yunobo is really good. He's one of the better sages because of his utility. His is a charge attack. He rolls around, and then you aim where you want to shoot him, and then he goes there. So after you get that handled out, you have to help the Gorons break free of the control and whatnot. The underground is quite dark. I can't really tell you any of the locations underground. So then you find the fire temple basically. And I don't really have much to say about the fire temple because I kind of cheesed it a little bit. You can make a hover bike in the fire temple, and you can just go to wherever the yellow points are, and you don't really have to engage with the puzzles. I'm sure the puzzles were really good. They do heavily rely, it seems, on Zonai devices. There's like minecarts around, and you have to put like fans and rockets on them. But you can just make a hover bike, and you can cheese the entire dungeon. I'm sure you can cheese like the other dungeons too, but this one's like really cheesable. So after you hit all the gongs that release the locks from this like door, you fight a surprise guest appearance, Goma. It's really nice to see Goma back. I love Goma. And Goma looks quite rocky, in this appearance. A very rocky spider. It doesn't really look like a spider. I think it only has like Goma only has like 4 legs. But this is a mediocre boss fight. I'm not like a huge fan of it. You have to like hit Goma's legs with Yunobo, and then you have to hit Goma's eyes, and then but I actually did die like I think once or twice on this one. It was kind of tricky. I had to upgrade my armor and my weapons. But after the first phase, Goma starts getting on the ceiling, kind of like Ocarina of Time, and you have to use Yunobo, and then you have to aim it, and you have to make Yunobo go across the wall to hit Goma, and then knock Goma down. You have to hit Goma's eye after you do that. So Goma isn't as tricky as the Muktarok in my opinion, but it's still a pretty fun boss fight. It's just an boss fight. And that's kind of my opinion on the Gorons and the Fire Temple. They're just It's not really an engaging story. I mean, like, the Goop is not really an engaging story either, but, like, the Muktarok is fun, and the overall look of the Water Temple is cool. The Fire Temple doesn't really look that cool. I do like the gongs, though. I think those are a neat thing. Let's quickly talk about the underground while we're at it, because, you have to go under there to get to the Fire Temple. It's really impressive to me how much they hid from players about the underground, because the sky islands and stuff, the sky itself was like one of the most heavily advertised things, and it's only like a small part of the game. The underground is literally like the entire size of like Hyrule, I believe, and it's nowhere to be found in the advertisements. But I can kind of understand why. I like the idea of the underground. It's just that if you've been to like one place of the underground, you've been pretty much to the entire underground. It's not that fun to explore. I do like the making the batteries, getting the zonite and whatnot. I also like using the bright bloom seeds that is new to this game, and they light up the area. It's really cool throwing them around. And I do like lighting up the area and then connecting them. There's these they're called light roots, and they are like connected to the shrines up top, and that's how you find the light roots and stuff, because they're literally where the shrines are, and if you didn't know, they're the shrine names but backwards, because they're really creative. The underground it's kind of a creepy factor to it, but I didn't on my map it's not that well explored, because I just like exploring Hyrule and the Sky Islands more. Alright, now onto the Lightning Temple and the Gerudo Village. It pretty much, getting to the Gerudo Village kind of plays out the same. They won't let any voes in or whatever, so you have to kind of cross-dress to get in. The annoying sandstorm stuff is there where it blocks out your map. I never really liked that aspect of it. I found it kind of annoying. So you go into the Gerudo Village, and it's like deserted. And you're like, where is everybody? Rito's not there. And then you like look underground. Not like the underground, but like they're underneath in this like kind of like shelter place. And apparently like the Gibdo are back, and they are attacking like Gerudo Village. And so this whole thing plays out where they're like preparing for like this Gibdo attack, and then you have to like get your armor, you have to get your weapons, you have to get your arrows and whatnot to prepare for this Gibdo war attack. It's at that like bizarre place where you get the like clothing to get into Gerudo Village, and you prepare for the attack, and then you go there, and the Gibdo are there, and they're like, and you have to fight with Riju, and you have to use her like ability, which is she surrounds the entire area with like a lightning cloud, whatever, and wherever you shoot your arrow at, it strikes down lightning on the enemies, and it's like an AoE attack, and it's really effective against the Gibdo, who are weak to lightning and fire. So there's this entire sequence where you fight them, and then you go back to Gerudo Village, and then you have to do, like, I think another attack after that. And they have, like, these pod things where they spawn in their, like, offspring or whatever. They keep on spawning Gibdo. And there's, like, 3 of them, and they're attacking the main Gerudo Village. And you have to protect Riju. It's kind of easy, but it's really fun. But after that, you have to find the Lightning Temple, and that involves doing this kind of really cool sequence. It involves you having to find these like 3 pillar things, and you have to like use mirrors, and you have to shine the light on something, and eventually reveals the Lightning Temple. But before that, the boss of the temple actually shows up for like a little like sneak peek of what's to come. But you can easily defeat this by just using lightning on it, and then you only do like a little bit of its health bar, and then it goes away. The Lightning Temple is also one of my favorites because you have to use mirrors and lights to activate buttons and whatnot. There's also a bunch of like traps that you would find kind of like in pyramids to stop you from progressing. You of course have to use Riju's power to activate these things that open up to the boss. But one thing that you can do is you can use Ascend and you can get into the boss arena before the boss is there and check that out. Of course, the boss isn't there yet because you haven't done the things necessary for the boss to appear. But it's cool to just check it out. So after you've done all the puzzles and whatnot in the Lightning Temple, you fight the boss, and it's the Gerudo Queen. And there's these 4 pods around, and you have to of course use Riju's power to strike down on the Gerudo Queen and burn her like skin off, I guess, to show her like skeletal remains or whatever, and then hit her. This boss is really tough. I don't know if it or Muktarok are the hardest out of the temple bosses, but they have close competition. Because like I think after its first phase, it has like all these Gerudos spawning from the pods, and you have to hit those, and they can get really close to you and like almost like hitting you, and they do a lot of damage, and it's a really like hectic, like you have to be on your toes fight. But you will probably eventually finish it and then get Riju's vow. Also, while we're talking about like the Gerudos, I just want to talk about the cool new enemies that are in this game. Of course, the aforementioned Gerudos. I love that they brought them back, and a lot of these enemies are really creepy and scary. The Gerudos from like Ocarina of Time and like Majora's Mask, they would basically like get on you and like hump you and whatnot. But I think they made the Gerudos kind of a little bit even more scarier by making them more insect-like. And like I mean, you like burn their skin. I don't know what it would be called, but like their skin off, and it shows like a skeletal like remains, and they look really insect-like and really inhuman. There's also the boss bokoblins, which are kind of like a really fat, big bokoblin. I love those guys. There's the Arakuda, which is like these bird things that attack you. They appear in like the Wind Temple, and they like steal it from Tulin. They steal the bow from Tulin. There's also one with there's a Skyview tower, and it takes the device that activates the tower, and you have to shoot it down. There's these tree things, like trees will just randomly attack you now. Horriblins. I didn't really encounter too much of those. I heard Gleeoks are in the game, and they're super tough, and that's just really cool. There's like 3-headed dragons, bro. Is that not the coolest thing ever? Of course, there's the likes, which disturb me. They are disgusting. I hope they don't bring them back for like another Zelda game, because I just don't really like the likes. They creep me out, bro. For the next topic, there will be a spoiler warning because there's some major spoilers involved with it. Not with the Master Sword itself, because obviously I wouldn't put like Master Sword probably in the chapters. I think I'll probably put Master Sword in the chapters thing. It's more something that is involved, associated with the Master Sword in this game, not the Master Sword itself. So if you think the spoiler is the Master Sword and you haven't got it yet, no, this is like a spoiler that you would probably have to beat the game to like understand or do all the tiers and stuff. Just like Breath of the Wild, you can get the Master Sword in this game, and you're very incentivized to do so. because the Master Sword, while it breaks, it always replenishes, and it's like an infinite use, reusable item that always replenishes, and you can always use after like 10 minutes, I think, like a 10-minute timer, which is good in a game where all your weapons break. And like Breath of the Wild, you have to go to the Lost Woods, aka the Korok Forest. Well, you don't really have to, but it's much more easier to get the Master Sword if you do. I believe you have to do like a couple of temples and like dungeons to get the quest to do it. I think it's like 4 or 5. And then it's a quest activates that's like the Master Sword, but that's no fun. Who likes doing it the intended way? So I did not do that. I did it like after the second dungeon or whatever. But getting to the Korok Forest is a little bit harder this time, as it seems like the hitbox of the fog that covers it is always hitting you. So it seems like there's no obvious spot to go through until you realize there's an underground section and underground hole nearby the Lost Woods that you can go under. And so you go into the underground and you find this pillar that is directly underneath the Lost Woods, and you use Ascend on it, and pop, boom, you're into the Lost Woods. I like this different from Breath of the Wild because it's its own thing. It's very unique in that sense. Breath of the Wild, it felt like just your standard Master Sword pulling, but with a fresh new coat of paint. This one, you're doing a lot of things that are associated with Tears of the Kingdom and feel very Tears of the Kingdom-like the underground. You talk to the Deku Tree, and he's like, "Oh, I'm very sick. I think I'm very gloomy." Or something, because he's like infected with gloom. Then you like go inside of the Deku Tree, and like you go into this hole inside of him. You can interpret that however you want. But Phantom Ganon's in there. That's cool. The Gloom Hands, Phantom Ganon, that's super cool. It's a very hard fight if you're not prepared. If you're like me, doing this like 2 dungeons in, and not when you're supposed to. When you have like 4 dungeons and it's like a cakewalk. Phantom Ganon and the Gloom Hands are really tough, but you beat them and the like gloom clears up, and you talk to the Deku Tree. He plays a memory of the Master Sword or whatever. And then he gives you a marker, and he's like, "This is where the Master Sword is." And it's moving. So, the Master Sword is moving. What? What could that mean? And then you get near the Master Sword, preferably in the sky, and then you realize that a dragon is the marker. The Master Sword is on the dragon. It's really cool. I love this idea. So you have to fly near this dragon, and getting on it. This dragon looks super cool, and you have to pull the Master Sword out of like its head, and this time it requires stamina, which I think makes a little bit more sense than hearts, because this probably is wearing out Link more than it's depleting his health, especially in a dragon where you're like pulling it out in the sky and stuff. I feel like that would be a pretty hefty workout. You pull it out and there's a memory that plays with Zelda, and she's like, "Oh, the Master Sword is a her, it's a she." So it's like, I think referencing Fi or Fi, however you want to pronounce it, from Skyward Sword. But if you didn't know, that dragon is Zelda. Zelda's a dragon. And I think this is like probably the best like plot point in the game. And like I don't really like I don't really have like a reason for it. It's just cool and very fresh for a Zelda game. I didn't really get all the tiers, as I said, so I have no idea why she's really a dragon at all. But I think it's just a cool idea. And another thing with the Master Sword is that you can fuse it to just about anything, really. And it has this cool look to it where wherever it's fused, it's kind of rune-like, you know? There's these, like, I don't know what to call them, like, these characters that are, like, on the Master Sword when fused. They're, like, light blue and they're glowing, and it's a cool effect. And I think the Master Sword is more powerful than it was in Breath of the Wild, because it's a consistent 30 in Tears of the Kingdom, but when you fuse it with anything, it becomes quite strong, like 40s, 60s, you know. And I love this idea for the Master Sword. Everything about the Master Sword is just super awesome. This one's gonna be pretty quick. The Koroks are back in the game. I think there's like 1,000 something Koroks. I think it's like 1,400 Koroks or something, which is a lot. And you know, I get why they have to have so many, because you know, you can be anywhere in the map, and you have to get your players to upgrade their equipment and their weapon stash and whatnot. But I feel like there's just so many, and I don't know what the reward for it is. I don't know if it's Hetsu's it again, but I think that was a good reward that just, like, you know, it really summarized getting all the Koroks. It was just it. But there's some new Korok things. I think there's this like dandelion seed, whatever, that flies, and you have to go catch it to spawn a Korok. There's the really new one that's inventive is the one where there's a Korok and you have to get him to his buddy so you can attach him to anything. I think I've gone over this, but you have to attach him to something and you have to bring him over. I really like that one. I just love that you can torture the Koroks. But other than that, Koroks are back. They're cute. I like them, but not like a super fan of them. This is also probably gonna be a quick one. DLC armor's in the game, and I really like this because a lot of the DLC and Amiibo, there's the Amiibo armor and stuff. The DLC armor, I think, it's great for anybody who was playing Breath of the Wild and didn't get to get the DLC. And it's also good for Amiibo, just because, like, in 10 years time, are Amiibo going to be very popular still? And are they just going to be, like, extremely rare and, like, extremely, you know, hard to find, and you're locked out of this content? So I really like them doing this. And I don't think there's any DLC for this game yet, which is really shocking, to be honest. Maybe Breath of the Wild DLC came out like a year after. I'm not sure when the DLC for Breath of the Wild came out, but it felt like it was relatively soon after. There's no master mode in this game, which is shocking. I mean, I get that it's a harder game, but like, that's kind of been like a staple. And you know, like, speedrunners and stuff, like, the challenge people, they love their, like, master mode and stuff. As for, like, DLC, like, items and, like, story that would have been added, I don't really think they need it. I mean, they have, like, the DLC, like, they have even, like, the DLC items from the, like, the travel medallion. I don't think they have the bike. They have, like, They have the Fierce Deity costume armor. That's cool. I love that one. I got that one. Like, they're just out in the open world, and you can just get them in chests and stuff. And I think that's a great addition. But like, I'm still like, I'm shocked that they haven't doubled down on the DLC yet. But like, I'm not like, oh, this game needs DLC. This game needs DLC. I'm glad that it doesn't have DLC. I'm just saying, like, it would have probably been like a payday for them. Alright, let's talk about the 5th temple. Again, spoiler warning. This is like a major spoiler warning. Come back, or if you don't care about spoilers, just keep going. So after the 4th temple, you go back to Pura, and she does something about Hyrule Castle, and you have to go to Hyrule Castle, and you fight Phantom Ganon yet again. But it's a cool one because you have all the sages with you, and there's like 5 Phantom Ganons, and it's cool. It's a neat little fight, and I like the aesthetic and the overall look of it. It's not that hard because you have all the sages with you. But then you go back and Pyrrha's like talking about like, I think either the Master Sword or like the 5th temple. And then you, like, she's like, oh, there's like 4 rings on your like hand, but you have like 5 fingers. Like, dude, what if there's like a 5th sage, man? And like Link's like, yeah. So then you go to like this electric island in the sky, and it's like always thundering and lightning and stuff. And it's really hard to get there and navigate because the map's like not available, and it's very hard to look at. It's very hard to see with the dark, obscuring clouds. Very hard on a handheld when you're playing on handheld mode and kind of low brightness. Actual hell. Eventually you find this shrine and you can always teleport back to this like mask piece that is called Minoru, which is Raru's sister, I believe. And she gives you this beam thing that points to where you have to take her. And I think eventually you take it down, you fly her on like the wing zonai thing, and then you take her down, and then she goes into the underground. Take her to this casing thing, and it has like, it's kind of like Operation, I would say, like Operation the board game, and you put like a piece of her, the like mask piece, into the where the mask piece is supposed to go. And Minoru is, I believe that's how you say her name, is like, oh my god, I'm Raru's sister, please put me back together again. So you do these like 4 challenges that involve zonai devices, and they're really challenging, I would say. Not like challenging and like hard, but like just really brain teasers, you know? Difficult in the sense that they have to get you to think. Of course you can, like, I don't know, cheese it probably with just making a hover bike or something. But you have to take her like parts that are in this casing box thing to the outside to get her to put them back to fit together Minoru. And once you do that, she's put back together, and then she's like, oh my god, thank you for saving me. I'm the 5th sage. It's like, what? But it's not actually like Minoru. It's her spirit inhabits the thing that you built is like this zonai machine thing that she possesses, I think. And you like ride on top of it. And you can also fuse like things to its arms and back, which is cool, like a chain ball and like maybe a flame emitter, and then you can put like a fan on her back. Just cool combinations like that. And then you have to fight this fixed construct thing in this like wrestling arena. It's definitely one of the bosses of all time. I'm not really a fan of it. I think it's pretty lame. And I think the 5th stage and her puzzle is pretty lame as well. I get that like you can't have Rauru, but like I think Rauru would have been cool. Like he's got a cool design, and you don't really meet Minoru at all. And just like the design of the like robot thing that you're controlling is not cool, and it's very like unintuitive to actually use it. I guess it's Sage ability. I just like it because it fights for you, it picks off smaller things, you know, while you're battling a mob of enemies. Here's another spoiler thing, because Hyrule Castle is kind of like, you can do it from the beginning of the game. It's kind of light spoilers. I think there will be something that I have to say that is kind of spoilers. Hyrule Castle is in the sky now. It's very dark and gloomy. The waterfalls that you can use the Zora armor is still there, and I like this one, but I think both of the Hyrule Castles in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are really fun in their own ways, you know. Breath of the Wild, you have the Guardians like patrolling and securing the area that make it very challenging to get through. Tears of the Kingdom, it feels like you can kind of navigate a little bit better. I think Tears of the Kingdom, if you're doing the story mission, I think you have to go through Hyrule Castle. I'm not sure though. Whereas Breath of the Wild, you can basically just use Rivali's Gale, and then you did all the mini bosses, so you don't have to fight them, and you can just get to Ganon. Tears of the Kingdom has very challenging and difficult enemies, like you would expect. But Hyrule Castle's mission is basically finding where this Zelda is going, this Zelda ghost-like thing. She keeps on like disappearing, and you have to follow her, and then she turns in, and there's like a bunch of like enemies that appear, and you have to beat them. Like there's like this Hinox that appears, and like a bunch of like Bokoblins. There's like Moblins that appear, a bunch of likes. The like one is like actually horrendous. It's scary and grueling. I hate the likes, having to fight like 3 of them, and they have their disgusting mouths out. It's horrid. Of course, you fight the Phantom Ganon, like I said. And Hyrule Castle, it's alright. It's a fun to explore. You of course get some good weapons there. But I think the main highlight is what you do after you do Hyrule Castle, and that's go into the Great Underground. That is the great hole that is underneath Hyrule Castle. This is where the true Hyrule Castle is. Well, not really. I don't think so. It's like a metaphorical thing, you know. This is where like the playable Hyrule Castle is of Breath of the Wild. It's not like Hyrule Castle's underground is a labyrinth of sorts. It's just that it feels like the natural, you know, there's a final boss coming and this is the end. It feels like the ending is approaching. There's quite a bunch of tough enemies. There's a Lionel, I think. And it feels kind of a little bit linear. It feels like you know what direction you're going. And you're just fighting tough enemies, and you're traveling through this dark place. There's one location that's very memorable, and you fight these Lizalfos, and then there's like this gap, and you have to bring like a flying plane thing, whatever. It's like it looks like a bird, a Rito, I guess. And the Zonai, you have to use the Zonai devices. It's a Zonai device. and you have to get over that gap, and there's a moblin over there on the other side. But the most important thing is that there's gloom hands in the middle, making you very, like, it incentivizes you to actually make that jump, because you'll probably fight Phantom Ganon, and you'll probably deplete your resources, wasting them on what you could use on the final boss, but you're using on Phantom Ganon. I remember this location because it took me quite a couple tries to get through. I was always dropping down and having to like reload my save to not fight the Gloom Hands. I don't really like fighting the Gloom Hands. A Phantom Ganon, he's cool, but I don't like fighting the Gloom Hand. But once you get through that, you go through. I'm pretty sure after you get through all of that, though, you go to where you were at the first, like the beginning of the game, with Zelda. So that's like really interesting, and kind of a loop. It's kind of like a full cycle. It's kind of reminiscent of the logo in a sense, the Ouroboros. Major spoiler warning from here on, because we're gonna talk about the final boss and the ending. So you like jump down after you go through the cave where Zelda and Link were exploring, and you go through this mini boss kind of gauntlet if you haven't completed all the like dungeons and temples and whatnot, or if you have beaten them, you only have to go through the first boss here, and that is the this mob of enemies. It's like bokoblins and moblins first, then it's like hinoxes, I think, and then those like flying enemies. It's really cool. It's called the Demon King's army, and you fight them. You don't have the sages. You have the sages with you fighting. It's you pretty much want to like use mob clearing items, like ice, like rods, ice rods, lightning rods, fire rods, ice arrows, and stuff like that. Bomb arrows. Nothing to really say about it. It's just, your standard enemies. But what comes after that is all the 4 bosses appear out of nowhere, and they're like, oh my god, they came out of nowhere. And if you did all the side quests, the sages all fight them, and then you proceed on to the other things that come after this. But if you don't, you have to fight all 4 of the dungeon bosses. So right now we have like 5 bosses already, which is pretty much that like already is overstepping Breath of the Wild's gauntlet of bosses. I think you only had to fight 4 Blights and then Ganon. But we've already, if you count the Demon King army, we've already done like 5 bosses. But and then if you did the 5th temple boss, you fight the 5th construct. So 6 bosses. Then we into the complicated stuff. Okay, I think you can maybe not fight Phantom Ganon. I think you have to fight Phantom Ganon, so I think that's like 7. I'm not sure on that. That could be wrong. But the big thing that comes after Phantom Ganon is Ganon himself. He's back again for round 2. He's no longer a corpse, and he's voiced by Matt Mercer with his sulky, sexy voice. Ganon looks hot in this, and he's probably it's like he's the best boss, and like it's probably my favorite part of the game. They made him intimidating. He's threatening, and like he's just super cool looking. I also love how he just like talks to you and like taunts you, and like he's trying to like what's the word, like he's trying to like demean you, like what, it's like it feels like I'm fighting like an actual like person being thing, and not just some like Kogera, like what is Kogera, bro? His first phase is it's challenging, but I think it's not like the thing, you know? It's not like the thing you think about. Or I think there's like a trope on like TV tropes, it's like that one boss. No, what makes Ganon that one boss is his second phase, where he increases his life bar, and like it keeps going and it keeps going, and it's like on the like it's touching the other side of the screen. It's that long. That's what makes him that one boss, because I think this will make him one of the most memorable like Ganon boss fights, and maybe like one of the, I don't want to jump the gun, one of the most memorable final boss fights of a Nintendo game, or like maybe even of video games. Like, I don't want to jump the gun that early, but like this one is like, it's a really like good final boss fight. It becomes actual like hard. Ganon is like not messing around this time. the first time that like I like got a flurry rush off and I start doing it, and then he like dodges it, and then he like comes back at me, and then he comes back at you with like his own flurry rush. I'm like, I am fucked. But then you whittle down his health bar to like a quarter of it, and then he does like a third phase. So I guess you could say there's like, up to now we have like 10 or like 9 boss fights, which is quite the number compared to Breath of the Wild. It seems like they really took with the speedrunners. This is more like speedrunner focus and challenge run focus, because you know, in Breath of the Wild you could easily just go to Ganon, Hyrule Castle, fight the blights, and then get an easy time. This one, it seems like they really want to test speedrunners and stuff, which I think that's sweet of Nintendo. And I'm sure that the speedrunner and challenge runners and stuff are really gonna enjoy that aspect of this. And then like he just like, he has like multiple, like he has his Phantom Ganons out, and it's just like, there's so much going on. I love that boss fight. But then after you somehow miraculously are able to finish off Ganon, he decides he hasn't had enough, and then he like, I don't know what he does. He eats like one of the sacred stones, and then he turns into a dragon, just like Zelda, and then like go into the sky, and then have another boss fight. I think it's like 11 boss fights. It's insane. If you didn't do like all the like side quests and stuff, and it's a very good step up from the Calamity Beast Ganon from Breath of the Wild, where it just felt like a walking simulator with like you aim and throw the light arrows, and then you practically like could not die in that section. I don't think you can die in this section, but it's more like, it feels more intense. And like, I don't understand the complaint with the Calamity Beast Ganon. Like, it's supposed to be epic and climatic. It's not supposed to be challenging. You already did the challenging part. But you basically just you fall and you try to stop the gloom on the dragon, and then Zelda sometimes picks you up, and then you hit the head of Ganon and you stab him, and it's cool. And then Link falls, and then he saves Zelda, and story's over. I love Tears of the Kingdom. Alright, now on to my final section, which is what do I want next from Zelda? I don't know if this will be a quick one, but we'll see. We'll just see right now. What I want from Zelda is I want them to return to their traditional roots. Now, I know that like every Zelda game is kind of different from one another, but I think you can kind of tell that like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are quite the like different step and different direction, you know, in gameplay wise and just like story wise, you know. But they're the only games I would consider like actual like masterpieces of like the Zelda entire catalog. I don't know, I could play like an Oracle of Seasons and it changes my entire life or something. But I like the new formula that they have, but I kind of miss the linear stuff because the stories in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they've taken the hit. They're just not as good, and there's not as much lore in the games because you can do any of the temples in any order, and it kind of destroys the story. And I mean, even the tears, I don't even know if it's that. It's just the story, the way they present it. It seems like a Marvel movie, and they're just using Marvel powers and stuff. I could fall asleep to the cutscene. Whereas like, I don't know, the Great Deku Tree is like dying in Kokori Forest, and like I'm like, oh no, not the Great Deku Tree! Why is the Great Deku Tree dying? And that's a way more investing, you know? Like, the Gyarados, I'm glad that they brought them back, but like, I don't know, it's cooler in the older Zeldas. And the dungeons, I love getting the item of the dungeon. That's a cool thing that's kind of been missing from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Or maybe they could do something like, kind of like, that combines both of them. I mean, that's kind of what Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were trying to do. But I mean, more Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like, is trying to combine both of them. I just kind of hope it. And I like the setting of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but like I want to see a new setting. I'm kind of tired of post-apocalyptic Hyrule. But I think it's good that Breath of the Wild had a sequel, because I think some Zelda games deserve some sequels. And it's cool to see them expand on games. Breath of the Wild definitely needed this. Yeah, I just hope they at least like try something a little bit older, old-fashioned. But I also like, this is definitely like the dream for like someone who doesn't like the puzzles, doesn't like a linear story, like linear progression. Just like, I know, like being able to do open world stuff, it's cooler. And maybe we've kind of modernized and we've progressed past the point for the need of the old Zelda, which is sad to say, but I don't think that's like, I feel like we can have them coexisting. But I don't want them to just remake the old Zeldas and that be the only form, because then that means like an eventual stop at some point. I want them to at least, you know, like see what Super Mario Bros. Wonder is an excellent game. That did something new and inventive with the Super Mario Bros. New Super Mario Brothers franchise, and you know, 2D and kind of like 3D mechanics and 3D look kind of ish. It's a very good game that that's kind of like the thing I'm looking for with with what I want from Zelda, is what they did with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. So if you made it through this entire video, thank you for watching. I would love to know your feedback. That would be greatly appreciated. Like in the comments down below, you like actual like criticism if you have it, or if you don't have any criticism, you can just say, hey, I enjoyed this video, or you could leave a like, leave a dislike if you actually didn't like this video. Still helps let me know. If you actually like hated this video and like just don't want to leave a comment, or if you like this video and want to like the video, don't want to leave a comment, that still helps me know, like, hey, I know how many people like this, how many people don't. But comments, they would help me. But yeah, I love Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's a great game. It was really good for 2023. But as of what I'm recording this, it's been a new year. Happy New Year. Let's hope I have some more videos in store for you guys. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day and a great new year. Bye!